Good evening and welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustment public hearing for Thursday, June 13th, 2023. And if we'll please stand. July. You know what? See, we're going to get it wrong anyway. You had me thrown for a loop. Look at that. Please stand to the Pledge of Allegiance as we begin our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I have a couple of announcements to make. If you're in possession of a cell phone, I ask that you please put it on silent at this time. Know that all testimony is being tape recorded for the record. If you're going to speak, you'll be asked to state your name and address for the record first, and then go ahead with any input that you have after I have recognized you. And so all of us Board of Adjustment members are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the commissioner districts and one member at large and one member appointed from the Planning Commission. So now I'm going to give a brief overview of the proceedings for the evening. I will read the variance request and open the public hearing. While I'm reading your request, I'd ask that the applicant or the representatives come forward and have a seat in front of the board by the microphone over there. The applicant or the representatives will be asked to state their name and address for the record. Environmental Services staff will provide a brief overview of the requested variance, the staff report, and if any correspondence has been received regarding the variance request. The applicant or the representatives will then provide any input, corrections, concerns, or comments. Once the applicant or the representatives have provided the testimony, the board will then discuss the request, ask questions of staff or the applicant or the representative. Upon completion of the board questions, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request, and if there is, I would ask that person to come up to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and then give their testimony. When the testimony is complete, I'll ask board members for a motion to close the public hearing. Once the motion is passed to close the public hearing, there will be no further input from the audience, from the applicant or environmental services staff, unless recognized by the chair or if one of the board members wants some type of clarification. The board will then review and discuss the findings of facts. The findings are a series of questions that the board is required to ask based on Minnesota statutes and the requirements of that ordinance. Based upon the answers to these questions, the board will either grant or deny the variance request. All questions must be answered in the affirmative by the board. And once the findings are complete, there will be a motion to approve or deny the request based upon those findings. So there are 7 items on our agenda for this evening, and looking at the dais here this morning, or this afternoon rather. See, it's been a busy day. All members from all districts and at large and Planning Commission members are here. So we have a full board for us this evening. And we will go with ahead with item number 1 on our agenda for the evening. So that is a request from Richard and Anita Logan of Paynesville to construct from section 10.211A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to leave as constructed a 32-foot by 36-foot accessory structure that is 92 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of Rice Lake, and a 5-foot by 8-foot addition to the primary structure that is partially within the shore impact zone of Rice Lake, and to construct a 16-foot by 16-foot addition to the primary structure that is partly within the shore impact zone of Rice Lake. Said ordinance requires accessory structures to be constructed no less than 100 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of a recreational development lake, and that does not allow additions or alterations to a non-conforming structure located wholly or partly within the shore impact zone. And that property address is 17972 Dove Creek Road in Paynesville, Minnesota. And if the applicants would please come forward and state their name and address for the public record, please.
Richard Logan. I'm from Paynesville.
Can we get your address just for the record?
2705092 180th.
Thank you.
Next door to this property.
Perfect. And then staff to your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to make a note for members of the board before I get started that the request that was in the staff packets that were sent out, the staff report, did not include the 5-foot by 8-foot addition. It was in the public notice, but it was not on those staff packets. I must have missed that when I transferred those over. We fixed it tonight. It is a part of the request, and it was legally noticed. So just keep in mind that that's there. Next, I want to ask, did survey of the members of the board that were able to make it out to the property? Okay, and then any correspondence with anyone well on property?
I spoke with Anita,
Correct.
his wife.
Very good. So some background on the request here. The applicants own part of Government Lot 4 on Rice Lake in Eden Lake Township. The tract contains 32,036 square feet in lot area per the survey provided by the applicants. The property is in the R1 zoning district, and the applicants purchased the property in October of 2022. The property is in the R1 zoning district of Rice Lake, which is classified as recreational development and is on the impaired waters list for mercury and fish and nutrients. The proposed impervious lot coverage is 18.4%, according to the survey submitted by the applicant. The existing dwelling and deck were constructed in 1962, according to assessor records prior to official controls. The 32 by 36 foot garage was permitted in 2001 by the previous owners on the property. The staking inspection conducted by environmental services staff determined the garage met setbacks. However, the recent survey revealed setbacks could not be met based on the location of the structure and the size. The 5 foot by 8 foot addition was constructed in 1999. According to assessor records, no permit is on file for that addition. The proposed 16 by 16 foot addition to the primary dwelling will be on the landward side of the structure. Eden Lake Township, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And the alternatives to this request are just to grant or deny the variance as requested based on the findings of fact. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything you'd like to say to the board about your variance request?
Well, we're going to use this structure on the back for a sitting room, TV room, computer room, that type of thing where I can go in, relax after working all the years and just, you know, use it for that type of thing. So a couple things on that is, of course, there will be no bathroom in it or anything like that to affect septic or anything like that. And the other thing I tried to do is, if you look at it on there, it's on the furthest back portion of the house, and I'm trying to make it just as invisible to the lake as I can. I'm not sure if you won't go by, you'll have to look awful hard, I think, to see it. And I'm going to try to make it just look like, if you do see it, the same house, to kind of conform to the beauty of the lake and no obstructions on shoreline or anything like that. The peak on it, you may note on the building plans, is because it's so much smaller, is going to be at least probably somewhere around 16 inches below the roof line. So that helps too on hiding this. I'm not going to do anything to the lawn or do anything like that. So the one thing also that was on the survey, if you back up, it's hard to see on there, but there's a shed on there that's pretty right. Yeah, that's gone. So it's not a big deal. I'm at 18% green space anyway, and that's just added another. When the grass grows, it's kind of hot out, but that'll add another 100 square feet to it. So I wanted to do things right and ask for this. I'm going to kind of play dumb because I really don't know much of anything about the previous. I knew the owner before this because I mowed her lawn for 3 or 4 years. And I don't know exactly when she moved in there, so it may have been an owner previous even to her. I didn't think they moved there until 01 or 02, but I don't know who built the thing without a permit. But at least that's my building plan. No 2 stories, just 8-foot walls. It's going to be on the same grade. I hope to get it exactly right, of course, walking in there. So the floor will be the same, and normally with traditional 8-foot walls. Just a couple windows It's not going to even be a 3-season porch because it's kind of tough to watch TV and relax and some of those things. If I want the sun, I'm going to go out on the deck. So,
Thank you very much. Board members, questions for staff or the applicant?
I have a question for staff. Why doesn't the garage fit?
Mr. Chair, Member Schwigel, the garage is wider than what would be allowed with
okay.
the setbacks. If you look at the survey, you can see the center line of the road setback and the ordinary high setback. It's not wide enough in that position for that garage to have met setbacks. And how things were done back when that garage was permitted is different than how we do it now.
Okay.
We have the policies in place, and because of the policies that we require these surveys, that's where we're catching these structures that maybe were permitted and now don't meet setbacks.
So historically, those items are not grandfathered in then, or? Okay.
can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Because you did was the 100-foot rule in place back then, or was it 75, or do you know? I mean, I don't. But
Right. Yep, it would have been 100.
this has always been on this lake, has been 100?
Yep,
Okay.
since 1972.
I wondered on it then after I met with one of you on that, why they didn't move it back, but you're up against the center line on it.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, Shelley Benson, Environmental Services Director. So some of the, crazy enough, I can tell you 30 years ago, when I was here, we would have lots of these situations where people would come in, you'd get a permit, they'd stake it, you'd go out there, you think you knew where the lines were because the landowner was telling you where the lines were. This was not a survey situation. Sometimes the ordinance will change. In this particular case, the size of the structure, I don't know if that is an issue related to making it fit. But in this particular case, when I get time to look at this again, it was that the juxtapositioning was, I'm guessing, based on the fact that they told us where the lines were, and that's where we measured from. And then we put stake, we would like, yep, your stakes are fine. Then does it get built exactly where the stakes were? Sometimes it doesn't quite fit that way. But we are here to try to correct all of those things now. So.
Any questions? Hearing none, seeking anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this variance request. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request. Hearing none, looking for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
Jill DeLong, I move to close the public hearing.
Motion from Jill.
I'll second it.
All right. Rob? All right. All those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And so we have 3 findings of facts to work with tonight, the first of which we're going to start with the new construction. So that's to construct a 16 by 16 addition. So number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, it is an R1 zoning district, and adding an addition to a residential dwelling is allowed in R1.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say no. The official control says there should not be additions or alterations to non-conforming structures. This structure is less than 100 feet away from the shoreline. The goal of having that kind of requirement was that if a structure that pre-existed, if alterations were needed to be made, for more modern living or whatever, we would discourage just adding on to that building and instead building further away in a more conservative manner. So I'm going to say that no, it's not in harmony.
Okay, no from Joel. George?
No.
Amy?
Circle back.
Okay, Bonnie?
Still thinking.
Okay. Rob?
No.
Mike?
No.
Mr. Chair, I'm a no.
Okay,
I'll agree.
no. No. I'm a no, yep. No for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, under Lakeshore Living Policies, number 1, where we want to limit the impacts of additional shoreland development by clustering housing away from shorelines using a conservation design approach. I believe that it is not consistent.
No from Jill for number 3. George?
No.
Amy?
No.
Bonnie?
No.
Rob?
No.
Mike?
No.
And then no for number 3, so no for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Adding a addition onto a residential dwelling to make more living spaces a reasonable use, so I would say yes.
Okay. Bonnie is a yes for number 4. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it is unique to the property as the home he wants to add an addition onto was built before we had these regulations. It makes sense you'd want to add an addition to a small property, but because of where it's located, it is unique to the property.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say yes. It's on the back side of the house, away from the lake. The road behind it is not used very often.
Okay, a yes from Rob. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, and I'd also like to note that the house to the right is, your daughter will be moving in there, correct? So you guys do own that house as
Yes.
of right now.
Yes.
Okay. Bonnie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I'd say yes, it's more related to the usability of the property than it is to economics.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
Yes for number 7, so since there were 2 no answers for sections 2 and 3, we would have to look for a denial for the new construction part of this 3-part request.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I move that we deny building an addition.
All right, a motion from Jill, second.
Mr. Chairman, Rob Schweigel, I'll second it.
Second from Rob. Okay, George?
Agree. Denied.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so the variance granted for the new construction part of the request is denied, and you can talk to staff about that during regular business hours. So we'll move on now to a different part of this 3-part request, which is the entryway. So that's to leave as constructed a 5 by 8-foot addition to the primary structure that is partly within the shore impact zone of Rice Lake. And again, this is the after the fact part. So number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So are we doing separate findings of facts for each of
there's
the?
2 different. Yep, so this
Okay.
is the entryway, and then the other one is the leave as constructed a 32 by 36 foot accessory structure. So yep,
Okay,
there's,
thank you.
Yep. right, so for the entryway, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
I would say yes. Additions onto residential structures are allowed in R1s.
All right, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 1. Number 2 is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official control, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. At one time, it was permitted.
Okay. Yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 2. Is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say yes under living goals, number 3, to support housing options that give people in all life stages and economic means viable choices for safe, stable, and affordable homes.
Okay, yes for from Jill for number 3. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, I agree with living goal number 3.
Okay, Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
I am a yes as well, so that's a yes for number 3. Number 4 is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it's reasonable to want to use a building that already has an addition built onto it.
All right, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so a yes for number 4. Number 5 is applied to the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner.
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. Again, it was permitted at one time.
Okay. Yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 5. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say yes. It's not going to change anything. It's been there for how many years already?
Okay. Yes from Rob. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That's a yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I would say yes. It's just to continue using something that's been there for over 25 years.
Okay. Yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So yes for number 7. So with that, all questions being answered in the affirmative, we would be looking for a motion to approve this variance request as presented.
Bonnie Mossman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion from Bonnie,
Jill DeLong, I'll second.
second from Jill. All right, remaining votes, George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I am a yes, so those votes all answered in the affirmative. The variance request for the entryway is approved. Then now moving to the third request, which is that 32-foot by 36-foot accessory structure that is 92 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of Rice Lake. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, having an accessory structure is allowed in an R1 zoning district, so
Nope.
yes.
Okay, yes from Jill. George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so yes for number 1. Number 2 is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official control.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say yes because when it was staked out, that was the plan. That was the ultimate goal.
Yep, yes from Rob. Jill,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I am a yes, so that's yes for number 2. Number 3 is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes under living goals number 3 again.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 3. Number 4 is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control, yes or no?
Bonnie Mossman, I would say yes, it is. It's only an 8% variance, and it's something that was out of this owner's control, and it was been there quite a while.
All right, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 4. Number 5 is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. This was existing when he purchased it.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 5. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, that accessory structure has been there for many years. It's not changing the essential character of having homes and accessory structures in that neighborhood.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that's a yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, there's no economic considerations involved here.
Okay, Jill?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 7. All questions being answered in the affirmative, looking for a motion to approve this request for the 32-foot by 30-foot accessory structure.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I move that we approve leaving as constructed that accessory structure.
Motion from Jill,
I'll second it.
second from Amy. Remaining votes, George,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and myself, I am a yes as well. So with that vote count, this variance request has also been approved. So 2 of these have been approved, and then just talk to environmental services staff and see if we can work something out for the other structure to be built. So thank you very much.
I hope there's an alternative.
All right, moving to agenda item number 2, a request from James and Sarah Rabideau of Avon, Minnesota, from section 6.21P of Stearns County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance 422 to place a subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area 81.8 feet from the ordinary high water level of Middle Spunk Lake. Said ordinance requires a minimum soil treatment area setback of 100 feet landward of an ordinary high water level of a lake classified as general development. And that affected property is Lot 7, Block 2 of Highland Terrace. And the property address is 33728 Highland Terrace in Avon, Minnesota. And if I can get your names and address for the public record, please.
I'm Sarah Rabideau, and this is James Rabideau, and our address is 17319 County Road 54 in Avon, Minnesota.
Thank you very much. And staff, to your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start with surveying the members of the board who have had a chance to visit the property. And then was there any correspondence while on the property? Okay, seeing none, I'll move forward with some background information. The applicants own Lot 7, Block 2 of Highland Terrace, platted in 1963 prior to official controls. The property is in an R1 zoning district, and the lot size is 19,897 square feet, according to the certificate of survey submitted by the applicants. The property is in the shoreland overlay district of Middle Spunk Lake, classified as general development. The applicants obtained the property in December of 2022 and were granted a variance in May of 2023 to construct a 2,192 square foot dwelling on an existing foundation that is 9.7 feet from a side property line. The applicants have submitted a septic design completed by a licensed designer. The submitted design is a Type 4 system that utilizes pre-treatment and disinfection technologies. Effluent entering the soil treatment area is required to be substantially cleaner than typical effluent in a normal type 1 through 3 system. The goal of this type of system is to reduce the overall height of the mound. These systems are reviewed by an advanced septic inspector at the department, and these systems do require an operating permit, which includes compliance monitoring. Avon Township, City of Avon, Avon Area Lakes Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And alternatives on this one are to grant or deny the request.
All right, thank you very much. And applicants, anything you'd like to say about your variance request?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah, and this is our second time coming here. So we've looked at many different options and what we could do with the septic, and we worked with Tim Hagg quite thoroughly on what our options were. We're putting it exactly where the existing septic is. So we're just replacing it. Our well is in the front, same with all of our neighbors. So our lots are pretty narrow, so both of the neighbors' wells are in the front with their septics in behind their houses. So by putting it where it's existing, we're not affecting our neighbors. And we heard about this water treatment. It's supposed to help keep the lakes cleaner. We do know that's a little bit more upkeep for us to have to change the light bulbs in there, but that's something we're willing to do to try to make it as environmentally friendly as we can. Anything you want to add?
No.
All right, questions for the applicants or staff from board members?
I have a question for applicants. The septic that was there,
It failed.
it failed?
The previous owner, like, the guy opened the lid up and said this thing's
Okay.
a goner. So, and then most of the septics in that neighborhood have turned over at least once, so.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. Now, I didn't know that. I missed that the current septic failed, but would they have been required to get a bigger system, being that they doubled the size of the house? Or are they just replacing to have one?
Mr. Chair, Member Schwagel, I didn't look at the sizing of the system. It looks to be similar in size to the old system. I didn't check how many bedrooms it was for. I could pull that up to see what it was, but it doesn't look like it's substantially bigger than the old system.
Because the existing house was 2-bedroom?
Well, half the house was technically, well, it was 3 bedrooms that was finished.
3-bedroom?
The
And you
whole
went
house
to
was not technically
4.
finished, and we are going to 4. Technically, one of them is a home office, but we are putting a closet in there, so we're just trying to follow the regulations for that.
So in just a generic situation like that, would a bigger septic system be required? Because they enlarged the house?
Yeah, to go from 3 to 4 bedrooms, yes. I don't know what the old system was permitted as. I can pull that up here quick and see if it was already a 4-bedroom system.
Then the other half of my question is for the applicants. What would happen if the board decides to deny your variance?
I don't think we have another option because of the way the wells are placed in our neighbors. We did look at the front yard, and because like a mound system, that was kind of where you would put it on a lake. And we talked about moving our well, but because of our neighbors also having their wells both in their front yards, then now we are causing them to flip theirs.
So
I don't even know if he said it was possible with the design.
Yep, and then also
with
how
the
narrow
driveway.
our driveway is. So the setback from the road, our driveway and our neighbor's driveway is right on our property
Right.
line.
Yep.
I don't even think there's enough room in the front yard.
But my follow-up question would be, why didn't you come to, when you were here the first time, why didn't you have those both bundled together?
He couldn't, there was such a wet spring, he couldn't test the soils in
frost
time
couldn't
to make the
test, or-
application
We
deadline.
wanted to, we tried.
Yeah, we would have saved us money to do so.
Yeah.
Couldn't.
And I just making an observation, if we deny your request, your house is worthless.
It's valid. I think
So is the cart in front of the horse in that process, and who's responsible for allowing that to happen? Is that a choice that you made, was to go forward with the house first?
I guess I didn't know that we wouldn't have a septic. Like I thought we would. If it's a
We took
residential.
advice from Tim Hagg, and he
Okay.
wrote and you saw the preliminary when we
Yep.
passed the last one. And so
Yep.
it's very similar to what this was now. So I was hoping that that would be enough for you to see that, and if there was I don't know,
Okay,
just being
thank
very
you.
hopeful.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
And I believe, their other option would be a holding tank. Would that be correct? But that's not a real reasonable option for a
Family of
year-round home.
I did that. That was awful.
They would be back in front of you to request a holding tank because holding tanks are not allowed on new construction.
Right.
So it would be back here again.
Yeah, but it's
And that's
not a good option.
not a reasonable option for
Yeah.
a new home,
Okay.
full-time residence.
Any other questions? Hearing none from the board, anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Hearing none, looking for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
Chairman Rob Schweigel, I'll make a motion to close.
Okay, motion from Rob,
I'll second it. George Fiedler.
second from George. All those in favor of the closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now moving to the findings of facts. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, septics are required.
Mm-hmm. Yes from Rob. Jill.
Yes.
George. Amy.
Yes.
Bonnie. Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, it's only, 8%, 18% variance, where half of the septic field is outside of the 100-foot mark. So I think they really are fitting it as best as they can between their home and the shoreline. So yes, I think it still is in harmony.
Okay, yes from Jill. George.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes, and I also like to note that they are using the existing site.
Okay. Bonnie.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Mike.
I'm a yes, and I wanted to note that they were upgrading the style of the system to make it more efficient.
Okay. And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number two. Number three, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. I do believe it falls under living goals. Number 4, encourage new homes to be constructed in a suitable manner while including energy efficient technology, which this is the super duper of septics.
Yes for, I've never heard that referred to that as before, but I like that. It's a yes for number three for Amy. Jill.
Yes, and I also want to add the Lakeshore Living Policies, number 6, expanding mitigation requirements for projects requesting to vary from lake setbacks. They're already upgrading the system that they're using, so I believe that falls under that.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George.
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Rob. Yes. Mike. And I'm a yes for number three, so yes for number three. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, yes, having a septic system is using it in a reasonable manner.
Jill.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Mr. Chair, the applicants, they built their home on an existing place where a home used to be. They're rebuilding the septic area in the place where the septic area used to be. So it's really unique to the property.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Nobody will know the difference except the homeowner. So I think it's yes.
Okay, a yes from Bonnie for number 6. Jill.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I am a yes, so yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, there definitely are economic considerations here, but it's going to cost them more money, but it's not a consideration in their request. They need a septic system upgrade.
Yes from George. Jill.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 7. So with all 7 questions being answered in the affirmative, looking for a motion and a second to approve this variance request.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I move that we approve this variance request.
Motion from Jill,
I'll second it.
second from Mike. Remaining votes, George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Bonnie, Rob,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so 7 affirmative votes. Your variance request is granted.
Thank you so much.
And then, so these, the folks that are coming in next, they are joining us virtually, right? We want to see if that's working.
Yes.
Okay, yep. Can you hear us?
Jeremy, you want to try again, please? No audio from Jeremy. Just working with him.
Okay.
Jeremy, can you hear me? Jeremy, can you hear us? Okay, can you unmute and try again? Can you?
Should move. All right, well, I had agenda item number 3 upon the table and then move to number 4 at this time. A request from Reed and Baumeier of Cold Spring, Minnesota from section 6.21A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a 28-foot by 54-foot residential accessory structure with a 14-foot sidewall height on a property with a lot area of 1.2 acres in the Shoreland Overlay District. Said ordinance allows for a maximum accessory structure building area of 1,500 square feet and a sidewall height of 12 feet for a property with a lot area of 1 to 1.99 acres. And this is in Wakefield Township, and the property address is 16908 County Road 49 in Cold Spring, Minnesota. And applicant, name and address for the public record, please.
Hello, my name is Reed Meyer, address 16908 County Road 49, Cold Spring.
All right, thank you very much. And staff, to your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to survey the board members of those that were able to make it to the property, and then of those that made it out, any correspondence? Okay. I do want to state that we did get correspondence, a letter in favor from Wakefield Township. They have no issue with the request on this one. So that came as an email. It should be a part of the packets. So some background on the property. The applicants own a meets and bounds tract that contains 52,272 square feet, about 1.2 acres in Wakefield Township. The applicants purchased the property in 2003. The property is zoned R1 and is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Bolfing Lake, which is classified as recreational development. Wolfing is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients. There is an existing 1,048 square foot residential dwelling with an enclosed porch that was constructed in 1940 per the Stearns County Assessor records prior to official controls. There's also a 672 square foot detached garage that was permitted and constructed in 1988. This structure would be replaced with the new accessory structure if the variance is granted. The current impervious lot coverage of the property is approximately 17%. The proposed is around 19%. The subsurface sewage treatment system that serves the residential dwelling was permitted and installed in 1997, and the system was certified compliant in 2022 by a licensed inspector. In November of 2022, the applicant applied for and was granted a permit to construct a residential accessory structure that met the required setbacks and standards. The proposed structure has not been constructed. The following table on the staff report here shows that on properties that are from 1 to 1.99 acres, a 1,500 square foot structure with 12-foot sidewalls and a 20-foot building height are the maximum allowed. An alternative to the request would be to construct an accessory structure that meets the accessory structure standards that apply in the Shoreline Overlay District. Wakefield Township, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, Sauk River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Anything you wish to say to the board about your variance request?
Yeah, excuse me. You know, I was here last month. My application was denied, and I did some soul searching and did some thinking and decided, you know, I pared the building down to what would work for me, and I believe I'm pretty close to the specs that I need to be under. I know my sidewall height is a little higher, but the overall height, I can keep that under the maximum height. I'm asking for just a little bit on the footprint of the building, and it would really, really help me out a lot if I could get this variance. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yep, absolutely. Questions for the applicant or staff?
Yeah, I have a question for the applicant. So can you explain to us why you need it this size? What are you putting in there that has to be that height?
I'm an independent truck operator. I own my own business, trucks and trailers. I would like this size building to service my equipment. I have 48-foot long trailers, and I would like to have the added length to be able to walk around the front and back of the trailer to service it without hitting my knees or, you know, changing light bulbs, fittings, and things like that. It's just, you need to have just a little extra length to get around the front and back of a trailer.
What about the height?
The height is for the tractor height. The exhaust, the height of the tractor. I do have a cab over tractor. It's a little higher cab height. I don't have any van trailers at this time. I did own a 48-foot reefer trailer at one time. Don't have any plans to get any more, but if I did, I'd at least like to have the height to get it inside.
I have a question for staff. Is his business a permitted use in this zone? Okay.
Mr. Chair, question for staff. On the application, the applicant states they have 1.8 acres, but in the packet it says that they have 1.2 acres. Do we know which one is correct?
Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, the correct number is 1.2. There was some discrepancy on some property lines, and I think that got resolved last time, but there was some carryover that never got cleaned up. There's so many places that these numbers show up. We do miss them.
Okay, thank you.
Does that discrepancy involve where you filled next to your shed?
I'm sorry?
Where you filled, you hauled a lot of fill in.
Correct.
Was that where the property line discrepancy was?
On that side of the property, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
But that's where your shed will go, where the other one sits and
Correct.
Extend farther. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right. Yep, go ahead.
Just to clarify, so semi from floor to top stack, you would agree would be about 13 feet?
I'm sorry?
A semi-cab, Florida stack, would you say is good 13 feet?
Unfamiliar with the term Florida stack, but yeah, I believe they're a little tall, yes.
Okay, and your flatbed trailer size again?
48-foot step deck, and I have a 48-foot lowboy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Seeing, hearing none, looking for any, one in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Hearing and seeing none. Looking for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion from Bonnie,
I'll second it.
second from Amy. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Sign motion carries. Now moving to our findings of facts. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located.
Mr. Chair, yes, structures are allowed in R1 zoning.
All right, so that is a yes from Amy for number one. Jill?
Yes.
George? No. Nope. Okay. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes, so yes for number one.
Mr. Chair, could I hear from George why he was a no, please?
Well, the structures, those kind of structures are allowed, but I'm focusing in on the size based on the amount of acres.
Okay. So yes for number one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I believe that the deviation from what's allowed is only 12 square feet, so it is very minimal, and he does have a use that seems to make sense to have a taller building for his specific situation. So yes, I think it is in harmony.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George?
No.
Amy?
Yes, I believe the Wakefield Township was also on board.
Yes.
Bonnie?
And I'm going to say yes with the, the overall height of the building, I believe, was within standards. It was just the sidewalls that were higher in order to allow for I'm sure, the overhead door access.
Yes from Bonnie. Rob?
I'm going to say no because the sidewalls, again, don't match, but I believe he's over in square footage also.
Okay, no from Rob. Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number two. Number three, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I am a yes. I do believe it falls under business goal number 1 to be business-friendly region.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes, so yes for number three. Number four, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. It is reasonable to want to store and fix your equipment in a shed, especially with winter conditions, spring.
All right, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes, so yes for number four. Number five, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I don't believe it's unique to the property, but it's not necessarily created by the landowner either. He did not, make the size of the trucks that he wants to work on that height. It sounds like he's trying to meet the height requirement, otherwise just not the sidewall height. So I think it's unique, but not necessarily to the property. So I'm going to say yes.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
I'd say yes, that it is unique to the property because it's based on the size. It's only 1.2 acres and his dimensions what he wants doesn't really fit there.
Okay, Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes. And looking at the size of the building, when we're going with just 12 square feet extra, I'm sure that falls into place because of the particular dimensions of the building that making something exactly 1,500 square feet would be very difficult in good construction.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes, so yes for number five. Number six, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality.
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. The request is to also replace an existing shed with a larger shed.
Okay. Yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes, so yes for number 6. Number 7, the variance, or the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, economics are involved. It is to his home business that it's related to, but it's not just that. It's also because of the size of the building.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. Okay, all 7 questions being answered in the affirmative, looking for a motion to approve this variance request as presented. Okay, motion from Mike,
I will second the motion.
second from Amy. The remaining votes, Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so the variance request is granted.
Thank you very much.
Okay, to number 3 now? Okay.
Yeah, I'm an old timer.
You're the first one to see the accident.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Jeremy, can you hear us? Still struggling. I know they're hearing him in there, so I think we were going to do it on a cell phone.
Okay.
And that's fine. I can hold it up as necessary. Deb, do you want to bring the phone in so we can get Jeremy's information? I'm assuming she meant that phone. You want to go check on her quick? By the way, I didn't change the, didn't have an air photo on that last one. It was in the month's presentation, but didn't get carried over to this one. Last one.
Yeah.
I see that now popping up here.
On Reed Myers.
Yeah, when I left home, it was coming up.
It had to come in. It was weird. Well, you caught that too on 94 where you had to go in the other way.
I figured they'd all done
That was weird. I forgot about that.
Well, it's not a pad.
That's smart. That's smart.
Well, and earlier today, I was in St. Cloud up on, what was it about,
It just was weird.
on 2nd or 3rd Street North and what was it, like 25th or something? There was like a 6-car crash in the intersection. It was just a mess.
Just for that detour.
Oh, yeah.
And to New London and, you know. Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
So Jeremy, are you there?
I am. I'm trying to mute my computer. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're ready?
Ready? All right, awesome. Ready for number 3.
Jeremy Schammel from 15080 Valley View Drive in Savage, Minnesota.
Can you hear that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And my apologies. My wife wanted to be here, and she's unable to. She had a conflict.
That is all right. And then, did I read it out? I think I did, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then, so staff to your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to verify that, Jeremy, you can hear us all still?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, moving forward with some survey of the members of the board for those that were able to visit the site. And then was there any correspondence while on site? Okay, we did have correspondence from the township on this one, and that letter was provided to the members of the board, so I hope you had a chance to review that.
What was the outcome of it?
questions about the RV that they wanted, how did she word it? They wanted the board to table the request until the RV could be sorted out. And we had determined that, as staff, we determined that wasn't, with Angie, we determined that wasn't going to happen. That wasn't our place to table it based on
that particular reason.
For that particular reason. There wasn't a reason for us to table the request because there was a different violation with the township at that time. So we decided to move forward.
Okay.
So in other words, there wasn't a nexus between what they're requesting and what we would be approving? There's not a relationship between the two?
Correct, yeah. From what the township was requesting and what we're discussing here tonight, there wasn't a relationship there for us to take any action on their situation. So,
all right, thank you.
Some background on the property. The owners purchased lots 1 and 2, Block 1 of Jody Estates, First Edition, in December of 2019. The plat was, Jody Estates First Edition was platted in 1971. The lots are combined as each lot does not meet the minimum lot size requirements. So when they're owned in contiguous by a single owner, they become one lot. Lot 1 is approximately 39,750 square feet, and Lot 2 is approximately 34,070 square feet. The combined is 73,820 square feet. The property is in the R1 zoning district and the shoreland overlay district of Cedar Island Lake. Cedar Island is on the impaired waters list for mercury in fish and nutrients. The impervious lot coverage is not a consideration of this request. The 12 by 16 foot gazebo was discovered at a reinspection being conducted by department staff for an RV that was permitted by Stearns County in March of this year. The RV does require variance from Wakefield Township as they do not allow RVs as primary dwellings. Wakefield Township, the Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. Alternative would be to grant or deny the request.
All right. If the applicant has anything they wish to share with the board to their request.
Yes. So even though it is not, I agree it's not necessarily related to this request, I do have an appointment Saturday at 1 o'clock at Camping World to have my RV stored there. My wife and I are always trying to do what is asked of us. I will say the gazebo has been there for several years. It was part of a variance for a camping pad that we put in. It was reflected there. My wife had several conversations with Dave at the time. I know he's no longer there. I guess as far as use goes, I have a degree in environmental science, so we are always concerned about the environment. And I would choose not to spray for mosquitoes or spray myself or the land for mosquitoes. I would much rather sit in a screened gazebo, and that's why it's there. Is to allow us to enjoy the land without having to worry about the bugs. And that's about it.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions from board members for staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chair, a question for either staff or the applicant. So are the posts holding up the gazebo, are they cemented in place, or what kind of attachment are they to the ground, or is it just gravity?
Sure. No, when we had talked with Dave, we understood that we could not put in footings, nor did I want to put in footings. It is anchored to the ground with long tent spikes.
Okay. And then what kind, I apologize, I wasn't able to visit the site. What kind of, is there ground covering other than the gazebo? Is it grass underneath or like a cement slab, or what is it?
We bought perforated, it's like a blue grid that allows water and to go through it. And so it's just kind of a grid that sits on top of the soil so that we could put our furniture on it and it wouldn't erode any further.
Okay, thank you.
So a question for the applicant, George Fiedler. So based on what you just said, I would say that this is movable.
Yeah, it is movable.
Okay.
Question for staff or maybe applicant. He refers to Dave. Was that ever, is there a record of this conversation or anything on file?
Mr. Chair, Member Sherping, Dave Knopfler was a Board of Adjustment staff a few years ago, and he has since retired. We don't have record of that conversation. If it happened on site, we wouldn't have that. We wouldn't have those notes, and we don't have him to talk to about those conversations since he no longer works here. So we don't know what conversations were had. We know that the structure is there, and we don't have records of it being permitted. We have records of the pad for the RV and then a water-oriented accessory structure, which is the other structure out there on site, but nothing mentioning a 12 by 16 gazebo. It would have to be less than that to be a structure that we wouldn't technically require a permit for, but it still doesn't meet setbacks, so we'd have an issue with it there.
I have a question for staff. The water accessory structure, variance required for that when they put that in, or did they not need it?
Mr. Chair, Member Schwagel, the water-oriented accessory structure is allowed to not meet the lake setback.
Right, but did they? Okay.
Yeah,
So
they're allowed one that doesn't. Right,
Okay.
they're allowed one that doesn't. It just has to conform with the standards for those water-oriented accessory structures.
And a question for staff. With the topography of this area, would staff say that there is a location that it could be moved to that would meet the standards with allowing for the bluff and?
Mr. Chair, Member Mossman, it's possible. As far as I can tell, there may be spots, but would it be in a usable location for the applicant? That's up to the applicant to decide, because it, where their RV pad is compared to where these buildable areas would be, there's a bit of a difference there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, question for staff. Or even for the applicant, with this gazebo, do they remove it in the wintertime? Because it's not permanent, there might be the chance that it's installed in a different location, whether inches or feet or whatever, and how does that impact a variance approval?
Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, the structure remaining on site for any length of time requires a permit. Even if it's removed just seasonally, we still would require a permit for that structure to be there.
I understand. I guess the question is the variance specific to that particular location, as in because it's not permanent, it could be moved, like say they decide to put it away for the winter and then next spring they put it out again, but it's in a slightly different location. How does that work?
Mr. Chair, Shelley Benson, Environmental Services Director, they would need to put it back in the location that the variance was granted to. So if they would take it down. Jeremy, I think you were going to let us know if in fact you take it down or you leave it up.
Yeah, we do leave it up. And from our perspective, there really is no other usable place to put it.
So I'm showing you the topography of the lot for everybody. That's what all these contour lines are. And the site here that was picked for the pad was the only generally usable. I'm going to use that because this is a challenging lot. And so are many of the lots in this area, as you can see by the contours.
The pad was permitted, correct?
The pad was provided as an RV location because it's not something you're going to be able to do very easily anywhere else. So they gave it a variance for that, to have an RV in that location.
Did the township get that variance, or?
They got a variance from this Board of Adjustment. And I'm looking at Jill, because I think you were at this one.
I was, yep.
Based on the neighbors previously. Bonnie, you and Jake were there. So there are members who were there with this. But the previous request also included an accessory structure up on top. And that was a lot of the focus of that particular request from the neighbors and everyone else. So that was denied, but then they were granted the pad on that for the RV. And so what the applicant is now saying is essentially it's like a slight extension of that pad area for this gazebo.
Question for staff. Is the gazebo that was constructed, is that something they worked with environmental staff in doing? Or maybe that's an applicant question too?
I think what I heard the applicant say, and Jeremy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that he had talked with staff who was the staff on site for it at that time, but there seems to be, just so you know, there is a storm alert, just that's what we're hearing. There was some information that transpired between the staff at the time and the applicant, and I think communication is always one of those things that isn't always transferable when people retire. And I think that's the situation that we're in right now. So when they went back to look at the construction area to see did everything get put where it was supposed to, then they saw this and there weren't notes on the gazebo, and that's why we're here. Because the applicant wants to make sure we're in compliance, and that's why they wanted to come back and address it, because they want that space for, as they said, without mosquitoes. Okay. Does that make sense? Did I answer the question enough?
Yes, thank you.
Jeremy, if there's anything else, please feel free to add it.
Nope, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Jill?
I do. Just a question for staff, just to make sure I'm understanding this properly. Even though it sounds like the structure itself is meant to be temporary, we are doing the variance in the mindset of it being permanent.
It's essentially a permanent location for a structure they use that could be considered temporary, but because they have left it out, it basically remains as a permanent structure.
Okay, thank you.
And Brian has a photo that he can. I was trying to before and it switched out on me, so. Yeah, we could probably do that. There was a photo that Brian had in the previous one that showed that it was there before when they had requested the information. Deb, can you turn on the overhead? We'll see if it picks up on there. The dock cam. She is, look at that. She's awesome. Yay. So you can see that the gazebo is there thank you, Brian. With on that side of right there. And then the accessory, so you notice there's a small flat area. That's kind of why they granted it in that location for the pad for the RV, because it's not going to be big enough for a house and a septic and all of the other things.
And Bonnie Mossman, after seeing this photo brought back up, I remember this looking just as it did when we visited there with the gazebo there. So I don't know the date on this picture, but I'd verify that that's accurate to when we were there the first time for the first variance.
But again, if I understood the first part from staff, the RV is not a factor in this at all. Plus, the county permitted the pad for it,
yes.
But they don't have the authority to permit the RV.
Well, they're going to work out that situation and however they're going to do that. But the county at least granted the pad, and essentially whatever communication existed between the previous staff person and the Shamels, there was obviously some misunderstanding and misinterpretation related to that type of structure, permanent, not permanent, where it's located. But now, because we're all agreeing that it's going to be staying in that particular location, we're saying that's why it needs a variance, and that's essentially an extension of that pad because it's right at the end of it.
Question for staff. So that pad for the RV, I know we're not talking about the RV, is that 30 feet from the bluff?
I
That
don't,
pad is in the bluff. It is in the bluff. So it's a flat section in the center of the bluff.
Is it in compliance?
that's why
That
they,
was part of the
that's why they
original
were granted a variance.
for the pad.
It's not in compliance.
Well,
It's in compliance because it got a variance to allow for it to be in that particular location.
Right, but technically it's out of compliance and they had to get a variance because of that, because they couldn't come into compliance, correct?
In order to allow it to be in compliance, they had to get a variance. And that's what they did. So once it's in and the variance was granted to allow for that type of use, limited as it is, that's okey dokey on our side.
And the gazebo was even closer, right?
Yeah, and I think it curves a little bit. So the gazebo's like right in that, this is that area right there where it says gazebo. Oh, you can't see. Got to flip over back to the other one. Thank you. So if you can see, the gazebo's right here, and just because the width of the gazebo is wider than the RV, it's kind of in front of it. So that's what it is. And you can decide on how you want to interpret that for yourselves.
Jeremy, I have a silly question for you.
It's not.
Do you guys ever get storm damage where it blows away being anchored down?
Jeremy, I think that's you.
Does it move?
Never had any issues with storm damage?
No storm damage, okay.
Might be right now.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Hearing, seeing,
Anybody in the public?
yeah, anybody in, well, I was just saying hearing and none and seeing on the board. Now I'll go to the audience. Anyone wishing to speak to the request? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance request hearing and seeing none? Looking for a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion from Amy,
I'll second.
second from Bonnie. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion does carry. Now moving to our findings of facts. Number one, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, accessory structures are allowed in R1 zoning.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
I'm going to say no.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes. And George, can you, for the record, just so that it's straight?
Yes, although the use is allowed, that is out of compliance. It would only be allowed if they got a variance. So it's, you can look at these, what's frustrating about so many of these, you can look at these in both situations, both ways, and you can come up with a yes or no if you want to. And so my goal is, my philosophy is, if we have a situation where we can correct it, that's what our goal ought to be. And here we have a situation where we have a structure that can be moved. And in my opinion, I think it should be moved to come into compliance.
But did you take in consideration he's already had discussion with previous staff too?
No, because that's after the fact. The rules are what the rules are now, and it was discovered, how long ago was it discovered? Recently?
Just at a reinspection in March.
So when we discover issues that are not in compliance, we need to deal with them to try to get them into compliance.
Okay, no from George. Bonnie was yes, right? Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number one. Number two, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say no. And, for the rest of the board, I'm sure they're all familiar with it. Bluff impact zone structures and accessory facilities, except stairways, landings, shall not be placed within the bluff impact zones. Pretty simple.
Okay, no from Rob. Jill?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes, because although it's in the bluff impact zone, I think the pervious surface or pervious floor of the structure would negate the runoff and some of those issues that we have with a bluff.
Okay. Amy, did I ask for your vote?
No, but I am a yes.
Okay. Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 2. No, Jill is a no.
It should be a 4-3 vote.
Yep. Number 3, so it's yes for number 2. Number 3 is the variance request consistent with a comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Jill.
Oh, I was going to say no under nature goals, where we want to preserve, restore, and protect important natural systems and natural resources, as the things that we're trying to make this variance against are about the bluff, are about the high water level of the lake. I believe that it does not go with those.
Okay, no from Jill. George?
No.
Amy?
I'm going to say yes. I think it falls under Lakeshore Living Policies, number 8 in the 2 bullets. It's not negatively impacting any views, and it is kind of like a water accessory.
Okay, Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 3. Number 4 is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner, not permitted by an official control.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it's reasonable to not want to be eaten by mosquitoes. However, this particular property, because of the shore impact zone, because of the bluff and everything like that, I don't think it's necessarily reasonable to put this in that very small piece of land. I just don't think it's reasonable.
Okay, so no for Jill. George?
No.
Amy?
Yes, it is reasonable to want to enclose porch.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes, because I think that because of the topography, it extremely limits what this property could be used for. You can't build a house on it. You can't, even a tiny cabin, you can't build on it. So to allow the owner to have some type of use for it, I think we need to, look at that.
All right, yes from Bonnie. Rob?
I'm going to say no. I'm going back to the buyer beware.
Okay.
The structure he wants there is not a need, it's a want.
Okay, no from Rob. Mike?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that's a yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner, is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say yes. It sounds like there was previous discussions with environmental service.
Okay, Jill?
I'm going to say no, it's created by the landowner, in that just because the property is there, there is no requirement for someone to have to live with a gazebo on that land. Like, if we were talking about a residential home, this is their home, they need a home, so they need to build a house there, I could, make the argument for that. But this is just a gazebo, so it really does feel like it's the landowners choosing to make that size and that type of structure there.
No from Jill. George?
No.
Bonnie?
I'm going to agree with that and say no.
Okay, Rob?
No, it's too close to the water, and it's actually in the bluff. That's what you need to protect the groundwater. You need to protect and prevent that runoff.
Okay, no from Rob. Mike?
I'm a yes.
And I'm a yes as well, but number 5 is a no. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, as that gazebo has been there for multiple years, I think that the character of the locality will not change.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go back to saying no, it's not a need, it's a want. And economics don't play any part in that.
Okay, no for number 7 from Rob. Jill?
I'm going to say a yes, just because I think the question is more specifically about economic considerations and not necessarily the need for it. So I'm going to say yes.
Okay, George?
No.
Amy?
Yes.
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 And I'm a yes, so it is a yes for number 7. The vote count is a no for number 5, so that being the case, we would need to look for a denial of the request as presented.
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, I'll move that we deny this request for the gazebo to remain as it is.
Okay, a motion from George,
Chairman Rob Schweigel, I'll second it.
second from Rob. All right, remaining votes, Amy. And this would be yes to deny.
No.
No. Bonnie?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
And I am a yes.
Jill is a yes, too.
Yep. Okay. All right, so that vote tally being what it is, we would look, this variance request as presented is denied, so what we would encourage you to do is to talk to staff during regular business hours.
Jeremy, did you hear that? It was a denial, and you can speak with staff tomorrow about that. Okay. I'm going to go with that. You want to bring that back to Deb?
Okay. Anybody need a break or anything? Are we good to go? Yep. Okay. Okay. Item number 5, a request from Terry and Shirley Nystrom, Sauk Rapids, Minnesota, from Section 9.99A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to place a 12-foot by 20-foot residential accessory structure 57 feet from the center line of Two Rivers Road. Said ordinance requires a minimum structure setback of 63 feet from the center of the township road. And then the affected property is Lot 7 of Blonigen's Addition, and then in Holding Township, and the property address is 19390 Two Rivers Road, Avon, Minnesota. And if I can get your name and address for the public record, please.
Name is Terry Nystrom. Address is 5035 Shadowwood Drive Northeast in Sauk Rapids.
Thank you, and staff to your report.
Here, I do want to start with a survey of the board. Who was able to visit the site? And was there any correspondence when on site?
I spoke with the petitioner.
Thank you, Member Schwegel. I do want to note that I did get an email from a Dan and Jean Brady, and they have no issues with this request. So some background information. The applicants own Lot 7 of Blonigen's Addition in Holding Township. Blonigen's Addition was platted in 1969 prior to official controls, and the applicants purchased the property in 1970. The property is zoned R1 and is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Two Rivers Lake, which is classified as recreational development. Two Rivers is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients, fish bioassessments, and mercury in fish. The 12-foot by 20-foot shed is already on the property in a location that does not meet the ordinary high water level of Two Rivers Lake setback. The request is to move the structure to a location where it meets the 100-foot ordinary high water level setback, but would not meet the setback to the center line of Two Rivers Road. There is an existing 8-foot by 40-foot unpermitted recreational vehicle on the lot. The applicants have applied for a construction site permit for this RV. That permit can't be issued unless we resolve the shed issue. The RV and the shed were discovered because of a 2022 complaint that the RV was not permitted, and the applicants have entered into a stipulation agreement with Stearns County to come into compliance with this. Lot coverage is not a consideration of this request, and there is no septic system on site. An alternative to the request would be to construct a residential accessory structure that meets the accessory structure standards that apply in the Shoreland Overlay District. Holding Township, Friends of Two Rivers Lake Association, the Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And that is all I have.
All right, thank you. The applicant, if you have anything you want to say about your variance request, please feel free to do so.
Right. Again, I don't, well, I shouldn't say again, but I don't know how this all started. And I think his records are wrong. I looked it up. We bought this place, the land, in 1968. We were the first ones in there, paid the farmer cash for it, and if it didn't get registered, I don't know how that goes from that point on. At any rate, we've owned the land since then, and I beg to differ on the ordinary high water, because if you go directly behind my shed, the building in question, to where they have the ordinary high water stake, I mean, I'm talking a straight line, I'm 103 foot 9 inches. So if you bump yourself a little bit to the, that would be the south, yes, no, excuse me, north. No, I'm sorry, south, I'm sorry. At any rate, there's a stake on the, it's almost on the property line between me and the neighbor. And back in the day when the neighbor built his shed, excuse me, his building, cabin, all of his water was shed off into our property. So we dug a small swale, which has been there ever since. Well, lo and behold, they took the ordinary high water reading for the elevation in the swale. Well, obviously it's going to be less. So that's what kind of pushes the whole thing here, which ends up being I'm in need to move the shed 6 feet. I'm already at 63 feet from the road right now on the front side, but the back side is what's in question, which I think is not really fair. But we, you know, 6 feet is what it is.
Questions for the applicant or staff?
I have a question for the applicant. Like on this picture, where, okay, we've got your shed, and then there's the RV next to it.
Correct.
And then open space there next to that. Where in there approximately is your property line to the next lot?
Well, I'm part owner of the lot that has the cabin on, and then I own the other 2 lots in between.
So,
You own that.
Yes,
okay, but that is a separate lot?
there's 3 separate lots there.
So like through that open space, there'd be a property line?
Yes,
Okay, so what I'm getting at is the other RV that was parked there when I went and saw it is
Correct.
on a different property. That's not on your property.
that is correct.
Okay,
And
that's what
I have a permit for that.
that's what I was questioning.
Any other questions?
I have a question for staff. Do you know, is there any future expansion of roads, fixing, adding broadband or anything like that? Is there any fiber optic cables that exist out there already, or?
Mr. Chair, Member Sherping, on this one, we noticed the township, it's a township road. They didn't respond back to anything. Typically, if it's on like a county highway, they would respond, but we didn't get anything back from the township. So that, I don't know.
Any other questions?
I have a comment. So, yeah, that's perplexing to me. If the township has a standard of, 63 feet? How did you guys know it was 63 feet?
Mr. Chair, Member Fiedler, 63 feet is a countywide standard for center line of the township road. That's in ordinance 439.
Okay.
And if the townships can be more strict than that, but never less. So we know it to be 63 feet.
So it's amazing to me that a township gets notified of this and they have no comment when clearly it's going less than the 63 feet. But you notified them, that's all you can do.
They were properly notified.
Okay.
Any other questions from board members? Hearing and seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request? Hearing and seeing none. Looking for a motion and a second to close the public hearing, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion from Amy,
I'll second it.
second from Jill. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now moving to our findings of facts. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, in R1 district, accessory buildings are allowed.
Okay, yes from Rob. Jill,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, he's trying to move the accessory structure further away from the shoreline, and in that way compromising the road. However, the road does not look like it's going to be expanded anytime soon. We didn't get any kind of no from the county engineer or anything like that. So I think it is in harmony. They're trying to get further away from the shoreline.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, I'd like to note that the township never seemed to have an issue with it either, so.
No one has ever mentioned anything to me.
Bonnie?
And I'm going to say yes because it's less than a 10% variance from what is required.
Okay, Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I would say yes, that it falls under Lakeshore Living Policies. Number 1, it limits the impact and additional shoreline development by clustering houses and that away from shorelines.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George? Yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, it is nice to have a shed on your property to store stuff in.
Yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Would it be unique since he owns other parcels too?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask the applicant one question. The shed that's on there, when was that built, approximately?
It was moved in. It was purchased as a complete done unit, and I
Okay.
bought it in 2018.
Okay, thank you.
June, if that makes a difference to
No.
you.
I just wanted to know if it was a few years ago or if it was 30 years ago.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it's a reasonable sized shed. It's not huge, and that reasonable sized shed, there's not really enough room on the property to meet both the 100-foot high water level and the 63-foot road. So I believe that it is unique to the property.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie? Yes. Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
There's other sheds in that area. I don't think it's going to change the character of the area.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, and I'd like to note that he's literally moving it 6 feet backwards.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
I'm a yes, yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I don't believe we discussed economics.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie? Yes. Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
So with all 7 questions being answered in the affirmative, we would need to look for a motion to place a 12-foot by 20-foot, 240-square-foot residential accessory structure 50 feet from the center line of the Two Rivers Road.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion.
I believe, isn't it
Mr.
57
Chair?
feet?
Did I say 56 or
You
57?
said 50.
57. Yep, 57 feet.
57.
Yep. Motion from Amy? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Second. Okay, second from Mike. Remaining votes, Jill.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
And I am a yes, so your variance request is granted.
Thank you.
All right.
Keys for the pickup, too.
Yeah, he probably wants to get it home in the garage. Garage. In the shed.
Newer vehicles out there.
Shed is out there for him.
Oh, well, yeah, yeah.
There's many car shows out on that end of the.
At least be
I
polite
believe
enough
it.
to say, yeah, we
They
don't
go
mind.
out there on the weekend, we have a storm.
Natural.
It's in that
Yep.
shed.
Sounds. Wow.
How do you open the door?
Mr. Chair, could we have a 5 to 10 minute
Yep.
break, please?
Chair calls a 5-minute recess. I'm gonna see if my truck's damaged with hail now.
It's raining. I don't.
Open doors, open hearts, open minds.
Yep.
Okay.
And when I asked for you to, explain why you did yes or no, it's more,
All right.
sometimes it makes me think about things I hadn't thought about.
No, that's fine. I'm happy to.
Yeah.
All right, back in session. And now, agenda item number 6. A request from Richard and Jennifer Crowder, Lakeville, Minnesota, from sections 10 to 11A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a 14-foot by 24-foot screen porch, a 10-foot by 16-foot addition, and a 6-foot by 28-foot deck partly ahead of the established building line. Said ordinance requires decks and additions to be constructed landward of the established building line. And that is in Wakefield Township, property address 16876 Ulster Point Road, Cold Spring, Minnesota. And if I can get your name and address for the public record, please.
My name is Rick Crowder, 17651 Jaguar Path, Wakefield, Minnesota.
Thank you very much. And staff to your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start with a survey of members that were able to visit the site, and hold your hands high so Brenda can count you.
And I also like for the record, I did meet with him as well.
Thank you, Member Sherping. So some background on the property. The applicant owns 0.38 acres of government lot 3 in section 28 of Wakefield Township, and the applicants purchased the property in 2010. I will note, I missed this, the township did comment that they have no issues with this request, and that should be in your packet as well. The property is zoned R1 and is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Crays Lake, which is classified recreational development. Crays is on the impaired waters list for nutrients. The applicants were granted a variance in 2018 to construct a 476 square foot deck addition onto the residential dwelling ahead of the established building line. The variance allowed the deck to be constructed 70 feet from the ordinary high water level of Crays Lake. The proposed porch and addition will be within the footprint of the existing deck. The deck addition will be partly ahead of the building line, but will be further from the ordinary high than the existing deck. If approved, the building line for the property to the east will be advanced lakeward. Lot coverage is not a consideration of this request. The septic system was inspected in June of 2023 and certified compliant. And an alternative to this request would be to construct the additions behind the building line. Wakefield Township, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, the Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Anything the applicant would like to say about their variance request?
Yeah, when we applied for this back in 2018, the idea was to screen this deck in. The footings and everything and deck design was built with these specs in mind. Unfortunately, finances just didn't cover it at that time. Hindsight after 2020 and lumber prices, I wish we would have figured it out because it's going to cost me a lot more today. But yeah, that was the intent. And then obviously with 7 grandchildren and 7 adults, it's a little tight inside that double wide. So we need space to expand the kitchen a little bit out the side, which is the 10 by 16 foot addition. And then like Brian mentioned, we're just covering up that deck in the back right now is 37 by 14. We're going to cover 25 feet of that and still leave the remaining open and then just screen in that porch. So please give us a little room.
Any questions for the applicant or staff?
And if I can just get clarification so I know kind of my mindset on this, are we going to be doing separate findings on these items or is it one?
It was one as presented.
Just one.
Just one,
Just
yeah.
one, okay. Well, I'd like to hear the discussion of the board first to find, to hear what people have, what their thoughts are. But maybe as an option if. Right.
I think we should do the addition and the deck separately.
I feel like they're all connected and part of the same project and are all impacted by just the one ordinance that needs the variance against it. So I think just having the one is okay with me.
And I'll reserve my opinion until after our discussion,
Fine.
so I can hear what people's thoughts are.
Should we just kind of continue on with the discussion,
Yep.
and we can decide as we need to? Any questions for the applicant or staff?
Mr. Chair, question for staff. Did we hear anything about the neighbor that's, let's see, the one, I don't know what direction that is. The shorter house, that's the house that's on the other side, because it looks like possibly their side view of the lake might be impacted if there's a new walls and a roof in the way. Did we hear anything about them and their concern about sight lines?
Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, can you identify on the building line map? I have east and west now, so north is up in that map.
Yes, the one in the middle of the lines. The lines are crossing the front of, yes, that one. Mm-hmm.
We did not receive any correspondence from them.
Okay.
And well, was there any correspondence then to the one on the left?
There was no correspondence from any property
From any
owners.
property,
No,
okay,
just the
all right.
township on this one.
Okay,
So
thank you.
And the township have no issue, correct?
they have no issues. No.
Okay.
Other questions? So it's kind of the wish of the board, I mean, for how to divide this up. Or do you want it together, divided?
I vote for together.
Okay.
That's my vote.
Rob?
I would ask the applicant, is it possible for you to do one section or two sections, or do they all three have to go at one time, or, I mean, are they separable?
It's going to be, so the kitchen addition, what's going to happen there is the 16 feet of the existing roof is going to be tore off so that we can do a complete roof all the way over,
Okay.
which then also those porch roof lines will line up, and you won't have anything stupid or goofy looking
Yep.
from the lake. So it'll all be one clean run. It'll be one unit.
That makes sense then to do it all as
Yeah,
one.
I think just as one, if that's all right. All right, so if there's no questions or comments for the applicant or staff, can I get a motion, or excuse me, is there anyone in the public audience wishing to speak to this request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? It actually gets more embarrassing when there's nobody in the audience, let me assure you. We're required to say that. Hearing and seeing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion from Amy,
I'll second it.
second from Jill. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now moving to our finding of facts. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Well, Mr. Chair, that's a yes. Proposed decks and additions are allowed in R1 zoning.
All right, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say no with all the new roof line that's going on there, and it's a request for a variance on top of a variance.
Okay. No from Rob. Jill?
So it's ahead of the established building line, and there's a deck already that is there. It's just adding walls and a roof to where the deck is. So and also with the building line, I think you take into account the shape of the shoreline, and the shoreline there is definitely weird. So I'm going to say that yes, it is in harmony, especially if the neighbors haven't said that they're concerned with the sight lines.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That's a yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go with no again on the water resources policy. Adhere to adopted plans and regulations that maintain, restore, and enhance the county's water resources. It's already an impaired lake, and this is probably going to make it worse. The rain now goes on the deck and drops through the deck. It's going to be focused now on the runoff from the roof.
Okay, no from Rob. Jill?
I'm going to say a yes, because I actually believe that decks, and I could be wrong, are considered impervious. Even if they do have slats, I think they're still considered impervious. But I'm going to say yes under living goals for supporting housing options that give people in all life stages and all economic means viable choices.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
No.
Amy?
I would say yes, that it does also fall under living goals number 3 to support housing options.
Okay, yes from Amy. Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, yes. Having this addition on is using it in a reasonable manner.
Okay, yes from George. Jill?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, it's reasonable to want a deck.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say yes to that because I think if he could have afforded it, he would have done it all at one time. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and that's a reality.
Well, and again, we kind of look at that shoreline where it kind of makes everything a little bit wonky, and so that's pretty significant, I think. So I would say yes, personally. Jill?
Yes, just because of the shoreline and trying to establish a building line with that kind of shoreline, it's tough.
Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
I'm going to say no. That's what most of the variance requests are based off of, is the high water mark, the lake shore.
Okay, no from Rob. Mike?
Yes.
Yes for number 5 then. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, there are other homes in the areas with decks on them, and in fact, there's some houses with bigger decks.
Mm-hmm. Yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say no because I think it does change the character because it does change the building line from the house next door.
Oh.
So, if we grant this one and then the house next door decides to use that building line space, then that changes the building line for the house next to that one. Or possibly, probably not, but depending on the shape of that lake there, it might not, but.
Sure.
I'd also like to state that the township has no issues with it.
No from Bonnie. Rob?
I'm going to say no and add to what Bonnie says. It's going to change the view lines, too, for the neighbors.
Okay, Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 6. And number... Hmm.
And the township had no issues.
Mm-hmm. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I don't think the economics, well, they are somewhat, but I don't think the reason for the request was not economics.
Yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes for number 7, and I'm a yes for that as well. So all 7 questions being answered in the affirmative, looking for a motion and a second to approve the variance request.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion from Amy, second from Mike. Remaining votes, Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
Okay, and I'm a yes. So the variance request is granted. Any questions, just contact staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with the project.
Did you see they extended our thunderstorm warning now?
Oh,
It's
we did.
8:30.
Oh.
I know, right? Finally, last but not least, agenda item number 7. Come on down. A request from the Lucy A. Lang Revocable Trust, Kimball, Minnesota, from sections 10.211A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to place a 30-foot by 40-foot detached accessory structure on an existing foundation that is 175.5 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of School Section Lake. Said ordinance requires a minimum setback of 200 feet from a lake classified as natural environment. This is in Main Prairie Township, and the property address is 14291 75th Avenue, Kimball, Minnesota. And if I can get your name and address for the public record, please.
Lucy Lang, 14291 75th Avenue, Kimball, Minnesota.
Thank you very much. And just want to put yours.
Yeah.
Doop.
Janice Smith, 31996 742nd Avenue, South Haven.
And you can just sit with her too. That's totally fine.
Can I ask what your relationship is?
I'm just a friend of hers. I'm here for support.
Awesome.
To help go through this.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And staff, to your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to do a poll of the board, see who was able to make it out on site. Okay, thank you. And then any correspondence went on site? None there. We didn't receive any correspondence from anybody regarding this request. So I'll move on to the background. The applicants own lots 10 and 11 of the Birches Plat in Main Prairie Township. The Birches Plat was platted in 1964 prior to official controls, and the tract contains 32,644 square feet in lot area per the survey provided by the applicants. The property is in the R1 zoning districts, and the applicants purchased the property in October of 2014. And that's the ownership as it is today, but there was a history of ownership back, I believe, into the 70s?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Or even before, maybe. Yeah.
Some level of that further back, but the ownership as it is today in the trust is 2014. School Section Lake is classified as natural environment and is not on the impaired waters list. The existing house and detached garage were constructed in 1969 prior to official controls. The proposed impervious lot coverage is 21.7% according to the survey submitted by the applicant. The septic system was inspected in August of 2020 and certified compliant. A 30 by 40 foot unpermitted accessory structure was built on the property in 1977 by previous owners. According to the assessor records, permits were required for this type of structure at the time. The proposed accessory structure will be built on the existing foundation from the original existing foundation from the original structure if approved. Main Prairie Township, Clearwater River Watershed District, so the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. Yep, that one. It's in the file.
Going on?
An alternative to the request would be to locate the structure closer to the right-of-way of 75th Avenue, further landward of the ordinary high of School Section Lake. And that's all I have.
Okay. And are we, this is. Okay, let's just pause first. Should we pause or just have them talk, or? Overheads, I think.
I guess. And I was amazed for something that's 46 years old, that slab.
Yeah.
In good shape.
I was impressed. I mean, we don't even see stuff. Yeah, I mean,
Wasn't cracked up or
no. Somebody did a pretty darn good job.
Yeah, when they first put that there.
Mm-hmm. from like 2005 and it's
Cracked and,
sometimes. Oh, exactly.
yeah. We didn't go that close to it though from the
Well,
road.
no,
We
but it
could
looked
see.
just fine, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of snow that day.
A lot of snow. There you go.
Better. Awesome. All right, applicants, anything you would like to say to your variance request?
First of all, thank you for reviewing my variance. And, oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, you're fine.
And the reason I'm here is because it's the lot is such with the slanted paved driveway and it tapers that we cannot move the shed another 25 feet back away from the lake. It won't fit. And there's not another place on the lot where it does fit. On the other side of the driveway is the septic, and it's a big hill and drain field. And it won't fit. So that's what the setbacks.
I have a question for you, Lucy. What happened to the shed?
Last March, heavy snow, my son was sitting in his bedroom and looked outside, and there was a big boom and crashed down, and the whole shed was demolished, pretty much. So, but they were able to save the slab and the.
Yeah, I am impressed with
the
that.
poles.
We were just talking about that. That's in good shape. Somebody had,
46 years old.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
in good shape.
Mhm.
Wow.
Are the posts the original too, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Are they going to reuse those posts too?
Yes,
Or
yeah,
okay.
that's the plan. And,
Wow.
I had no clue that it was not in compliance. We had lived there, I had lived there 34 years, and until Jennifer Buckington came out with her tape measure, I had no idea that.
That's about apt.
So, done by the previous owner, I guess they erected it without a permit, so.
Any other questions?
I have one for the applicant.
Mhm.
There's a sale pending sign at the end of the driveway.
Right. And,
Are you moving? Or?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I'm planning on moving. I'm trying to downsize and move, yeah.
And you have a buyer, obviously.
Pending, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
To add in your whole HUD thing or not? That's up to you. I mean,
Probably her. I would still
I
assume.
suppose that's-
I'm sure insurance.
I'm
would,
sure
yeah, I would
insurance is
bet
doing
insurance
it.
probably.
Well,
yeah.
you need to tell them about the HUD.
Not
I
necessarily.
I have a
because
question for the
insurance is-
applicant.
Mhm.
So looking at this picture, I see materials to rebuild. You must have anticipated approval?
Well, it wasn't that way. I mean, when it happened, there were like collector cars and things in there that had to be pulled out right now. So the contractor came, got it in March already, and got everything out of there. And that's when I signed the contract with them that we were, going to rebuild. And he was, so, he was just being efficient, and the plan was to rebuild. I had signed the contract for the materials and everything. And so they were delivered, and like I said, we just had no clue that there was going to be a problem, If we would have anticipated that those materials wouldn't be there, I'm sure he doesn't want all his materials tied up right now.
Materials were hard to come
You
by
know.
too.
If you could get them, you got them.
Yeah, exactly.
Miss,
Staff. How did staff become aware of it? Did your contractor apply for a building permit?
Yeah.
Okay, so then the
Yeah.
staff got involved there.
Yep, in the permit review to verify that it had a permit, the
Right.
staff identified that it didn't, and that is why we're here today.
So question for applicant or staff. So you say it won't fit, but you could comply if you made it smaller, right?
I think the setback from the road, even if it was smaller, it only could be moved 5 feet. Because it's, on the survey.
It's still, according to the survey, what is that, 30 or 35 feet off of the road right away? What do we have to be back, 63? 60?
Center line.
30?
For this
Okay,
road.
so she could move it back 5 feet. Okay, so then we're going to be disturbing the land and everything else. This way, you're not disturbing anything. You've got the concrete, you've got the posts. It's a matter of putting up a few more boards and some steel. I mean, really, it's more disturbing. The other thing is, so she had an insurance claim on this. She also has a reverse mortgage, and she can't do anything with her property unless it's replaced. So we're kind of at in the hands of HUD also. There's a lot of stuff going on, so.
That makes sense. Sure.
You have a question, Jill?
It was just about that, about the HUD and my understanding is that if, the other company owns the place, you're just renting it.
Correct.
So making it smaller probably is not allowed because you wouldn't be replacing like for like.
Right, exactly. As they had it,
Yeah, they don't want a substantial difference.
right, it can't be a substantial difference, and the property cannot be returned to them in disrepair. So, everything's supposed to be maintained and as it was when they got the HUD mortgage.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So I guess a question for staff, so why are we even looking at this?
County rules. It's statute.
I'm saying if they're stuck in this situation.
The mortgage in itself, in and of itself, doesn't require us it doesn't force us
To grant it.
I think she would economically default on the loan or something like that.
Yeah.
So it would be harmful. Yeah. It would be economically harmful for her. If she doesn't replace it, then she'd default on that mortgage.
I'm just bringing it up and pointing it out.
Yeah. I mean, if we could say, oh, this is one of those where we don't have a choice and we can do that, that's why we have boards of adjustment. So that's why
All right, hearing, seeing, no other questions. Anybody in the, some back there? No? Good? Good? Okay. Nobody in the, okay. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request? Hearing and seeing none, looking for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
All right.
Second it.
Motion from George, second from Amy. All those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. Now moving to our finding of facts. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Chair George Fiedler, yes, even though it doesn't comply with the standards, it is allowed in the district.
Yes from George. Jill?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes for number one, and I'm a yes. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I want to say yes, just because she is using the existing foundation and poles that are already there. I mean, it's just replacing something that was already there.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill?
I believe that the intent and purposes of the official controls are to reduce impact on the body of water, to keep things further away from it. It doesn't meet the minimum setback of 200 feet. It is close, it's 175.5 feet. So that's like a 12% deviation. So it is close, and I think that it might be more disruptive if we make them, tear up what's existing and then move it 5 feet. So I believe it is within harmony.
Okay, yes for Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Yes for number two. Number three, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say yes, or number one, under lakeshore living policies, and limit the impact of additional shoreland development. They're just going to replace it. They're not going to do any new development.
Okay, yes for Rob. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, I'd like to add that it does fall under living goals number 3 too.
Okay, number 3. Bonnie,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr.
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I believe it's entirely reasonable to replace a shed that broke.
I love that.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Yes from Jill. George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Bonnie, Rob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that would be a yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
I'd say this situation was created by the weather and not by the landowner themselves.
Yes for Bonnie. Jill?
Yes, and in addition, the original shed was built in 1977. It was not the current owner who built it without a permit, so they did not create this situation.
Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, and who knew we were going to get that much snow?
Farmer's Almanac.
There's a lot of people that had lost sheds.
Yeah.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. They are can't talk.
Been a long night.
Using existing structure.
Yep.
There we go.
Yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, where economics are a significant part of this, because if we say no, it will significantly impact the applicant. However, it also, we don't want to have to disturb the land that's underneath a perfectly usable foundation. So I believe it is more than economics.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
I'm also a yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So all questions being answered in the affirmative, looking for a motion to approve the variance request.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion from Amy,
I'll second it.
second from Mike. Remaining votes, Jill,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So the variance request is granted. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Next item on our agenda, we have the minutes from our June 8th, 2023 meeting. Looking for approval. Anybody had a chance to peruse these at their leisure?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, motion from Amy to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Second from Rob. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes as presented are approved. Anything from staff for us this evening?
What does next month
Yeah.
look like?
One. There is only one.
Really?
I'm like, I just said that. I was like, yes, one.
We have a party after that.
And then I think Mike should.
What's the date of the next meeting?
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, no. Yep, I'll be there. Okay.
Wow,
Okay.
that's impressive. I know, right? He is a lucky, lucky, lucky man.
Who's staff on it?
Dave.
Oh, Davis.
Yeah. All right, with that, looking for a motion to adjourn.
This is Jill, so move.
Motion from Jill. Can I get a second?
I'll second. We'll all second.
Yeah, well, second from Bonnie officially. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. Have a good month, everybody.
So what's the? Yeah.
I don't think